Peter Charles here, Folk to Life, Fly Fishing. And today let's take a look at actually using a single spey with a Skagit setup. And that's not commonly done, but it's a very efficient cast, and it's great for use in tight spaces when your back is right up against the bank. You can get off a single spey in places that you can't get any other cast going. I have actually literally been in the branches of bankside bushes are actually touching my back and around my sides, and I'm still getting a cast off with a single spey. So you can really get a cast off in tight quarters with it. So it's worth knowing how to do with the Skagit setup. And plus, I find it's probably the cast where I get the best distance out of Skagit as well. So let's take a look at what's involved with a single spey and a Skagit rig, because we don't normally put these two things together. And there's some things to think about. So let's start with my model here. And normally when we're casting Skagit, we end up with something that looks like that. We've got a lot of the sink tip, some of the back of the D-loop in the water, and that's normal. And when it rolls forward, you're pulling the sink tip out, and that's cool. So if we approached a single spey doing the same thing and we dropped all that into the water, you will find that you can get it extracted. You can get it on its way, especially if you have a large fly. You can make it work, but it is a bit clumsy and you don't get the best out of the cast. And it kind of is floppy, and there's a lot of spray and noise and not a lot of distance. So we have to do something different. And what I try to do is when I get the cast going, and I'm starting to get the cast going, I don't want very much of that tip in the water. There's got to be some, because the problem with Skagit being so heavy around the bottom of the D-loop is that all wants to drop. We've talked about that before. The tendency of the back end of the D-loop of a Skagit setup to want to drop. So we want to get into the situation where we're making our forward stroke, and we've only got maybe the end of the sink tip in the water, nothing else. So it comes out nice and cleanly, and we don't lose a lot of energy in trying to extract it. So that's the trick here. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at some footage. The first bit is slowed down about 50% so you can see what's going on. And what's interesting is I'm close to the bank, and I've got trees behind me and off to my right that are overhanging. And I can't make a regular cast. So not only am I picking up a Skagit setup and putting it into a D-loop and making a single spey out of it, but I got to do it sort of sidearm to avoid, putting my rod tip into a tree. So this is worst case for trying to get a cast going. And this is a 450 grain Skagit with a 10-foot T14 tip. And here I go. You can see my handle stays sideways, and away it goes. And the D-loop is a little bit sideways too for that reason. So I got the cast off. It went about, 75, 80 feet. So I'm not complaining about that cast. So here, I'll stop it before we get it going. This is even worse. This is a 450 fist head. And if you don't know anything about the fist head, it's mostly sinker. There's just a little back end is floater and the rest sinks. And the tip is T15. It's removed from a Airflow Custom Cut 300. So the only advantage I got now is I'm standing on the bank, so I've got a little bit of elevation, but I'm a short guy. If you were 6'4", you'd still be taller than me if you were standing in the water. And I'm getting a cast off, and you can see I have no back cast room at all. So I have to keep my D-loop out over the water and still get an angle change. So I'm not obeying the 180-degree principle. I've got a bend or a kink in my D-loop, and I've got to get it out there a decent distance. So let's see what happens. There it is, full speed. As you go, it goes quite nicely. Now we're going to break it down, and you're going to see what I'm going to do here. And you can see it moves rather smoothly. I'm keeping it very smooth. I've made a high lift, then I've dropped my rod tip back down quite low, and I'm sending my D-loop back with energy. And I want you to notice something. I'm starting forward. My anchor hasn't touched down yet. And that's how I avoid this problem of everything being in the water, because it's in the process of flying back, and I've already started the forward stroke. So this starts to drop, the tip starts to drop from its weight, and it's going to hit the water. It's no worries about that. But if I waited for it to hit down before I started the power stroke, it's just going to just embed itself in the water, and it's going to be tough to get out. I'm making a fairly broad, sweeping cast. My hands are fairly far away from my body. And let's watch the anchor. Now look where I am right now, and the anchor's hit the water. Okay? And see how far ahead I am in the power stroke. So I'm like right over here. And the anchor is just touching down. So it'd be like that. So it just shows you how far along I am progressing when the anchor is really hitting. And away it goes, and the anchor just slides through the water. So that's the key part of the single spey, is get the fourth stroke going before the anchor touches down. Don't worry about blowing the anchor. There's so much weight, it's going to go plop into the water no matter what. So you're going to get it off. Now what I'm doing here is really kind of cool, is that it's a continuous motion single spey. You watch my hands on this particular clip, you'll see my hands never stop moving. They never pause. There's that rotational motion and the way they go. And even when I'm in this position, I'll just stop it for a second. Even when I've come round like this, it looks like I've stopped here, but no, my hands are coming forward. So I've kept the load on the rod. And we'll see this clip done again, and you're going to see, watch now the tip of the rod. You'll see it never unloads when we do this next clip. So no pause. The rod is loaded all the way through. And the lift is still loaded. Now I dip into the sweep. It's still loaded. I come around. It's deeply loaded. It stays loaded all the way through this. You can see there's quite a bend in it, and now I'm going into the power stroke on lots of bend. So a single spey can be executed with continuous motion. And the whole idea is because the bottom of the D-loop in a Skagit setup is so heavy, and it will embed itself so deeply in the water if you let it sit and soak, that you have to be sending it on its way early, and you can't afford to pause. Because if normally when we make a single spey, we pause, we let the anchor drop, then we go forward. You don't do that with a Skagit head. You just, one motion, bang, gone. And as you can see, it works. Now, if you want some practice with this, and you can do this in the backyard, the best cast you can use in the backyard to practice this non-stop motion is the oval cast, or the Belgian cast, it's often called. And that is really just there's no anchor with that. You're keeping everything in the air, and you're keeping constant tension on the line and casting it out. So you can do this with a single hander too. So you're just coming around all in one motion like that, and you're just keeping it going in a circle. That's what I'm doing, is actually a Belgian cast, but I'm allowing an anchor to land, because the bottom of the D-loop is so heavy it's going to hit the water anyway. So, but I am actually doing a Belgian cast, but I'm actually using an anchor when I do it, and it works like a charm. And I can some of these casts, my running line in this image, and it was a video I did for the G Loomis 12-foot 6-inch 6.7 Pro 4X rod the first time I got it, and I've got markings on my running line, and the 50-foot marker was about 5-6 feet outside the guides. That's how far that thing was going. So you can generate a lot of distance with a Skagit setup and a single spey, and you can fire it off in ridiculously tight quarters. Literally bushes brushing against my back, and I'm getting a cast off, and it's going about 75, 80 feet. So, and with a good change of direction I'm at as well. So it's quite possible to do. It's worth learning how to do, and it's a very efficient cast. It's a low-stress cast, too. I like doing it. In fact, most of the time now when I fish a Skagit head, I automatically use a single spey for left bank right-hand casting. It's almost my default cast now with anything. So you don't have to be restricted. And I know there are videos out there saying don't do single speys with Skagit heads, but it does work, and it can be a very effective cast. So if you're like Skagit gear, and you've never tried a single spey with it, give it a try. It actually does work. Cheers.